Well, hello. I'm Gilbert, and today's little lecture discussion is going to be based on planning retreats and planning workshops, and just some different things to consider to help you be kind of like the most successful. Recently, I haven't done any retreat yet, but currently in the process of planning my own retreat and planning one for a yoga studio. So it's been nice to practice and kind of see what that's all about. It's been very interesting trying to figure that out. With that being said, a good place to start, or regardless of anything, is just the beautiful thing about yoga and retreats and workshops is you really have an opportunity to kind of do whatever you want, which is kind of liberating, but it's also, as someone who's a people pleaser, it's a little more of an entrepreneurial route that I'm not necessarily the most comfortable with. I'm used to helping people do what they need to for themselves. That's why, for me, just teaching at a yoga studio has been so nice because I don't have to do anything more. But then I see people, whether it's on Instagram or social media, and just all the different things that they're able to do and the way they're promoting themselves. I've just personally struggled with being hey man, you can do that stuff too. You don't need anyone's permission. If you can figure a way to make it happen, it's accessible to you. So all that being said, a good way to go about it, first of all, is determining your interests, because a retreat and a workshop, you can make, whatever it is that you want it to be. So let's say you're interested in pranayama, or you're interested in the chakras, or you're interested in meditation or arm balances or back bends. I would just recommend doing your research. That way you have a quality product to offer. And a lot of this is going to require you to just kind of do your own research, do your own, what are things that have kind of helped you out if, let's say, it's an arm balance workshop? What are just the tips and tricks, the drills that have been really beneficial to you in your practice that you can pass on to other people? Or same thing with pranayama, same thing with different meditations. A good way to even figure out where to go, because one way is you can just decide what you're interested in and try to do it. There might not be necessarily an audience for that, and that can be very humbling when you try putting on this workshop and people just kind of don't show up, whether that was a studio marketing it or the word just didn't get out. But one of my first workshops, I wanted it to be very introspective, to where I wanted people to really be able to take how their practice on their mat and how the things that come up is a reflection of life off of the mat. So in the workshop, we kind of did about a 30-minute flow class, and then for another 15 minutes, we kind of just held poses a little longer, with the idea of the flow section moving just a little quicker, and how people handle, and using that as an experience of how people handle when maybe they feel like they can't keep up, when everything's going on around them and they're just struggling to stay afloat. When really it's you don't need to keep up. You can still do your own thing and do it at your own pace. But just acknowledging the thoughts that come up with that. And then the second portion of that class was a little bit more of holding postures longer, and just giving yourself that space to feel the discomfort, to feel where you're holding tension, and to allow yourself to kind of breathe. And when you want to come out of it, giving yourself a little more time to process and stay with it, as opposed to just quickly coming out of a posture, if that's what someone would normally do. So the idea with that workshop was just to have that experience, and then have a little bit of discussion, and then do a little bit of journaling as far as what people were able to reflect on. And I was very grateful that the space itself allowed teachers to participate in the workshops for free. So I had, I don't know, a couple of teachers, there was maybe 2 or 3, and then like one student ended up paying for the workshop. So I mean, it was a little disheartening, but I'm just glad that people showed up. But that was also a workshop that was something that I wanted to do that wasn't necessarily, there was no one necessarily at the studio wanting something like that. So another good way to do would be to just do a little bit of research after your classes or at the studio, kind of ask students what is it they're interested in, what would they like to learn more about, where is it that they want to take their practice, and then using that information to kind of be like, okay, students are interested in, I mean, arm balances are kind of always a popular one, or a lot of teachers when they first come out of teacher training doing kind of like a basics, an introduction to yoga sort of thing, like breaking down the basics to help people just start with a stronger foundation in their practice. I feel like those can be pretty like well attended until, yes. So anyways, that's one way to go about it, is just asking students and maybe the studio owners like, hey, what is something that I could potentially offer? And then taking that information and then creating, I don't know, a 90-minute, 2-hour workshop around it. And then slowly giving yourself an opportunity to kind of try that out. And then after your first time, depending on how it's attended, you could try doing that again, like later on, and then tweak it from your first time through. And what's been nice, I have had one workshop that ended up going really well, and I called it the Progression Series. And with the Progression Series, the idea was in Nashville, power flows are a predominant amount of the studios in Nashville are hot yoga studios with power flow practices. So a little more like workout centered and people wanting to just build their practice a little faster. And so with this program, I usually keep it pretty small, between 6 to 8 people. And it's basically a small group private session where students will show up and let's say someone's working to crow, let's say someone's working on camel pose, someone else is working on like their splits. And so students kind of come up to me and then we'll have a little talk about what it is that they want to do. And then we'll create a sequence and we'll move through that sequence together. And it'll have just different drills to help kind of people work on where they want to go and then showing them kind of like what comes after. So just setting them up to help them develop their own personal practice. And with that, usually I've done that in kind of a 4-week series sort of thing. So that way we're revisiting it. And that really helps me just fine tune ways to like help them get to where they want to go and show them different ways of potentially getting there. And so that's been one that has been received, like the first couple of times I've done it at a few studios now, it was well received. It ended up like filling up at a couple different studios. And then I tried it a second time and then the numbers were like a little less. And then I tried it like a third time. And instead of doing a 4-week thing, it was just more of a drop-in sort of class. And then when I tried it like that, I didn't get anyone, and then I showed up for 4 weeks. So you always run the risk of that, but it was good. And I think I'll still do it again, but I think I'll stick to more of a series sort of thing. And that's just nice because each week kind of we're able to take things just a little bit like further and show just different advancements in, show them different advancements that they could make to their practice. That way they can also incorporate things in class, as opposed to kind of being limited to what the teacher says because they don't know exactly where to take, say if they're in a side angle and they don't know how to get into birds of paradise. And so it would be kind of like breaking down, all right, here's kind of where you need to start from your side angle, maybe a half bind. Here's how you get the full bind from the full bind. Here's where you can hop your back foot forward and then take it up to a birds of paradise. And then once you're in birds of paradise, you can maybe try straightening your lifted leg. Now, once you got your lifted leg standing up, then you can try maybe working a flag pose and like reaching across and over. And so the beautiful thing is there's always somewhere to take a posture. And as long as you can communicate that to someone, you can kind of give them at least some sort of framework as far as what to follow. And that's my intention with the progression series. So yeah, workshops are definitely a great tool to just also for yourself to dive deeper into what you're really passionate about and figure out different ways to kind of engage people in a similar sort of thing. And then that's nice because you kind of start to attract kind of your people. And so if you don't have a big following, whether that's on social media or let's say you're just a newer teacher, I'd say it's a little easier to kind of, if you want to have more success, just kind of going the route of surveying students and see what they want. And then once you're a little more established, once you've got kind of like your students who show up regularly to your class, who maybe like pop in from studio to take your class, then from there, it's a little easier to kind of be like, all right, I'm going to try something totally different and let's see what happens. And yeah, and the good thing too with workshops is you can use your workshops to kind of fine-tune what you would like to do in a retreat. And also the same thing with the retreat as the workshops is you can make that whatever you want, as yoga intensive as you want, as rest and relaxation as you want. And you get to decide everything. So you get to pick a location, whether that's, let's say, just a weekend thing or a week-long thing. You get to decide like the kind of food that's going to be had. Maybe you're working with someone and then you can plan something together. The beautiful thing about that is literally it can be anything you want. I participated in one retreat one weekend here in Tennessee that was just a hiking and yoga retreat. And it was nothing, I think it was maybe like $150. My friend of mine, another teacher, was leading it. And we ended up hiking about 30 miles in 3 days, backpacking. And then we would do a little bit of yoga kind of in the morning, some breathing exercises, some stretches, do our hike throughout the day, stop, take our breaks, eat snacks or whatever, and then make it to our campsite. And once we got to the campsite, we would do kind of like a little bit of, again, some stretching, just some breath work. And even during like the hike itself, we would do a few, like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes in silence and just listening and mindfulness. So that was just like a beautiful way to kind of just do something different. And to also just, I don't know, for me, I don't get to go hiking like too much. And so it was a nice way to kind of do both things. Obviously I love yoga and I love hiking, and being able to just turn stuff off for a few days is really nice. And if there's anything like in chakras, meditation, same thing, whatever you're interested in, you can build a workshop, a retreat around. Now with that, also considering like the size, the nice thing with Airbnb or VRBO, depending on however you feel about those things, is it's pretty easy to maybe find a house that can accommodate, let's say, anywhere from 10 people and find it in a beautiful location. Maybe it's a cottage, maybe it's like something more like a cabin, a little secluded with some property. And a lot of these places are already like set up to host groups and stuff like that. They might not necessarily have a yoga space, but if you reach out to like the owners and stuff, there could be some room. And then the nice thing with the Airbnb stuff is a lot of times it's pretty, like if you're having trouble filling it out, it's easier to get a refund if you're able to like cancel it. Where when we were looking for one of the studios to plan a retreat, depending on how big the retreat space is, they're all going to kind of have different policies on a down payment or the deposit and what and how much of it, if any of it, that you can like get back. So there was let's say this retreat space holds 40 plus people. So then when you're getting into a situation like that, they might have multiple retreats going on at the same time, but usually they're asking for how many people are you expecting to have. So you kind of got to pay up front for, I'm expecting 16 people. And so you're going to have to pay for the accommodations of 16 people up front to kind of reserve everything, or at least put some sort of deposit down. And you're not always going to be able to get that back. And so then once obviously you start getting people signed up, then then that kind of can take care of itself. But if it's something that you've never done before, that's just something to definitely consider. I'll be hosting my own first retreat, and actually Juan had suggested this place down in Costa Rica. It's called Tierra de Sueños, and I mean, I've personally never been there, but it seems like pretty rustic. It was pretty affordable. I wanted to make a lot of retreats get expensive, and this retreat, my whole goal was to keep it under like $2,500 total. So the accommodations for 7 days, all your food and stuff, 3 meals a day, itself is going to be $1,800, and then the flight itself, depending on how early people get it, and I'm expecting mostly people from Nashville because that's where I teach and I don't have a huge social media presence. But if they buy their tickets early from Nashville, they can get them for around like $400, $500, and then with a shuttle ride, they should be able to do the whole thing for under $2,500. Where a lot of retreats that I've seen offered from different studios in Nashville, most of them are starting around $2,600, and that's not including like your airfare, transportation. For a lot of these that are more sort of destination things, there's studios that are doing them in like Spain. There's a couple doing them in like Italy, or I guess those are the two that I had seen most recently. But so I mean, just considering in that sense, like my consideration was like the price point. And I wanted it to be affordable to people. And the students or the people I guess that I'm like closest to don't necessarily have the money to drop $3,000 to $4,000 on a week retreat. So that was where I was coming at it from. But the nice thing is this place, it's a little smaller. It only holds 18 people. So their deposit was a lot cheaper. It was only like $1,500. And it sounds like they were pretty willing to work with me if I'm struggling to fill it up. We've kind of got like a deadline. If I don't have 6 people, we'll try maybe like some different dates, or and then if that doesn't work, then maybe they'll keep the money. But the nice thing is it's only $1,500, and they're still willing to work with me. So it's not like a lost cause right off the bat if it doesn't work out the first time. And then I think just personally for me, that group size is great. And with what I want to do, like, so my retreat, or even a lot of the things that I want to do is I want to build more of community, and I want people to feel comfortable being themselves. So my idea for the retreat itself is to allow people the space to kind of like share something about themselves, and maybe like teach something. So if someone was to come and they're passionate about writing, it could be like a journal prompt or a writing session. Or if someone's passionate about meditation, or if there's another yoga teacher, maybe they want to teach a class down in Costa Rica, and they're more than welcome to teach a class. So really just allowing people this space to learn about each other while also like learning about themselves is kind of like the idea that I have in mind. And it has been nice doing this for me, for one, figuring out how to even go about starting a retreat, what to do, and just starting to research places and see kind of what it is that they're offering in their space, how big it is, the cost, obviously, what kind of activities that are available to them, the ease of getting to and from, if they need to travel to the facility, or if it's something that's just a little more manageable, driving distance from wherever you're at. Just taking all those things into consideration and making it, I suppose, as easy as possible for people to get there and to figure out exactly what it is, which I'm personally like struggling with because I don't do much like website stuff. And so kind of all the back end things is a little frustrating for me, and still a lot that I have to learn as far as like putting together the registration form or putting together the website. Or do I just want to do it straight through social media type stuff? And so there's still going to be, obviously, for me, that learning curve. And if you're better at that, then that is fantastic. Because then you just got to like look into the space. And for me, it's like all that stuff falls in place pretty easy. But it's all right, you've got the stuff now. How do you support all the ideas that you have? Yeah, and even that. So with your workshops, you can, let's say, you want to do a retreat on breathwork and meditation. Maybe try offering a few workshops themselves at studios around town, and then see how well that's well received. And then from there you can fine tune it, and then you can figure out, all right, how can I space this out for a weekend? How can I space this out for a week? Is there someone that you could work with that would complement you? So that way you're not doing the whole thing on your own. And someone that you get along with, someone that would just make it easier as opposed to making an already difficult, potentially overwhelming situation. You don't want it to be any more difficult than it already is. So yeah, and it's been nice just having done, I just recently finished leading a teacher training in Nashville, and just kind of seeing the ideas that they already have and what they want to do and how gung-ho they are. And just really, I mean, for yourselves, a lot of people who maybe haven't been teaching too long, or just getting started, or even you've been teaching for a while and haven't jumped into retreats or anything. For me, it's been more of like, rent's just getting expensive in Nashville, and I need to do more than just kind of teaching. So that's also kind of lit a fire under my butt to start venturing off and like trying new things and seeing what I can do to help cover just the cost of living in Nashville while still being able to like teach full time. And so it's nice because, yeah, if you do that and you don't have like, let's say private clients and a lot of things where you can make a little more money than you could just teaching regular classes. Or if you're doing like corporate stuff, that's always a nice way to make some money. But being able to do things to offer to your people, to your students, to the people who show up for you, to offer them something quality, and to just be able to support yourself is just like a beautiful thing. And it just takes a lot of trial and error. Same thing like if you're working in a vinyasa class, and let's say you've got a sequence and you try one time and it doesn't quite feel right, so you make an adjustment, and then maybe it doesn't feel quite right, and then you try it again, and it's like just slowly making tweaks, and you're just constantly refining it. It's like you do your personal practice, just like the way you do one thing is the way you do anything. And so if you're planning a retreat, or if you're planning a workshop, best of luck to you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down there. If you have any questions about my retreat, feel free to leave a question, or you can just reach out to me, send me a message. And I'd love to connect with you. But I wish you all the best. Happy planning, happy teaching, and take care. Namaste.